Messalina was born around 20 CE. She was a cousin of Nero and Caligula and became empress when she married Claudius. She was a paternal cousin of Emperor Nero, a second cousin of Emperor Caligula, and a great-grandniece of Emperor Augustus. After she accedes to power, Messalina enters history with a reputation as ruthless, predatory, and sexually insatiable. In the ancient world, whenever women had any role in the affairs of the state, they became part of the story and used their power and influence according to their means and purpose. Messalina used her power in enticing many men towards her bedroom chamber and was considered to be an unchaste woman. In 37 AD, Messalina married Claudius, who was at least 30 years older than her. At this time, Caligula was still emperor. Claudius took in marriage Valeria Messalina, the daughter of Barbatus Messala, his cousin. But finding that, besides her other shameful debaucheries, she had even gone so far as to marry in his absence Caius Silius, the settlement of her dower being formally signed, in the presence of the augurs, he put her to death. She was married to Claudius and had by him a son and a daughter. To cruelty in the prosecution of her purposes, she added the most abandoned incontinence. Not confining her licentiousness within the limits of the palace, where she committed the most shameful excesses, she prostituted her person in the common stews, and even in the public streets of the capital. Messalina had another lover, Gaius Silius. She plotted with her lover Gaius Silius, CE 13-48, a Roman senator who was nominated as consul designated for CE 49. Silius had become infatuated with Messalina, and it seems Messalina preferred the handsome urbane Silius to her aging husband. Messalina forced Silius to divorce his wife so that he could marry her. But instead of waiting until her husband was dead, they committed bigamy and married before witnesses, while Claudius was at Ostia. Silius was childless and ambitious. To effect their plan to usurp Claudius, the conspirators tell stories about seeing Claudius being murdered in their dreams to frighten the old man. Claudius was indeed afraid. He had Appius, one of the conspirators, put to death for his stories, then related the whole affair to the Senate, and acknowledged his great obligation to his freedman for watching over him even in his sleep. Messalina is a whore and a woman who sleeps with lower-class men. Either way, she likes her sex rough and dirty, which is not the hallmark of a respectable Roman matron, let alone an empress. What passes for history when it comes to Messalina is political and social annihilation. Accusations of sexual excess were and still are a tried and tested smear tactic against women. In this case, they were the result of politically motivated hostility. Messalina enjoyed high status in her husband's court, and no doubt used her charms for her amusement or as a political tool. But the portrait of the bloodthirsty and immoral wife proved to fit the needs of a later age. Stories about her promiscuity persisted because the conflicting claims of the families of Britannicus and Nero persisted. After the death of Nero, it became desirable to relieve Claudius of the burden of excessive cruelty that had earlier been attached to his reign. Blaming Messalina, along with Agrippina, for his unpopular actions served this end. Messalina's control over the often gullible Claudius became evident shortly after the emperor ordered the return of his nieces from exile in Portia, the daughters of Caligula's brother Germanicus. Agrippina, who would become Claudius' wife number 4, and Julia Livilla. Both had been exiled by their brother Caligula after years of abuse. Upon their return to Rome, Claudius returned both their estates and money. Messalina became jealous, especially of the beautiful Julia, who endeared herself to the emperor. Some believe Messalina feared the two sisters and their husbands might lay claim to the throne, ousting both Claudius and his wife. Messalina brought charges, adultery among others, against Julia and convinced Claudius to exile her. Julia would eventually die in exile from starvation. Her husband, Marcus Vinicius, was also executed on a charge of adultery. Agrippina wisely stayed in the background. The use of trumped-up charges like those against Julia was not limited to her. Messalina brought allegations, usually a suspected plot to overthrow Claudius. against anyone who opposed her, and the timid Claudius could not or would not oppose her. One of Messalina's many faults, and the one most associated with her, was her lack of faithfulness to her husband. Likewise, pity anyone with whom she became infatuated. One of the best examples of this was with her stepfather. After her husband's death, Messalina's mother married Appius Silanus, governor of eastern Spain. Unfortunately for Silanus, Messalina became infatuated with her new stepfather. However, he rejected her repeated advances. In 42 CE, in retaliation for this rejection, the empress convinced her friend Narcissus, secretary to Claudius, to claim he had had a vision where Silanus had stabbed the emperor. To further sway the emperor, Messalina alleged she had a similar dream. Claudius, a strong believer in such omens, had Silanus executed. Her infatuations, whether with Minister the Dancer or her stepfather, have been the subject of hearsay and gossip for generations. These rumors include her supposed evenings working in disguise at a local brothel. In 46 CE, she poisoned Marcus Vinicius, the husband of Julia Livilla, whom she had eliminated 4 years earlier because he allegedly had not wanted to enter into an affair with her. In late 46 or early 47, she removed the young Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, the husband of Antonia, Claudius's daughter, from a previous marriage. One version of his demise has him executed for a homosexual relationship. Again, it seems she was removing possible rivals to Britannicus. Messalina became a major power in the government, and those who she favored got the best jobs, but holding power did not satisfy all of Messalina's desires. Neither did Claudius. While Roman women in imperial circles were not always faithful to their husbands, Messalina went far and beyond the usual quiet love affairs. She had affairs with gladiators, dancers, and other persons most empresses never met. She was a hard woman to refuse. Those who turned her down were accused by informers of plotting against the emperor and were executed. When Nestor the actor hesitated, she told Claudius to order him to do as the empress wished. She took the most handsome men in Rome, and occasionally, for novelty, the ugliest, to her bed. Supposedly, when looking for new worlds to conquer, she challenged Scylla, a champion prostitute, to a competition in a brothel, which could wear out more customers. Scylla gave up at dawn. After, Messalina continued tirelessly into the day. The Roman satirist Juvenal describes her as finally going home tired but never satisfied. Messalina jealously guarded her position as Rome's most powerful woman. She eliminated potential female rivals, including Caligula's sisters Julia Livilla and Livia Julia. Caligula's oldest sister, Agrippina Jr., avoided the purge by distancing herself from Messalina. Even so, Messalina targeted Agrippina's son, known to history as Nero, as Britannicus' rival as Emperor Claudius' successor. Reportedly, her assassin-for-hire planned to strangle Nero in bed, but bolted in fright when a snake emerged from under the boy's pillow. Besides such murderous designs, Messalina probably played a role in a large number of executions during Claudius' reign. Messalina's reputation for bloodthirstiness was only eclipsed by her notoriety for nymphomania. Historical accounts describe numerous adulterous escapades, including claims that she worked at a brothel. According to Pliny the Elder, Messalina once bested a prostitute at a sex competition by pleasuring 25 partners in 24 hours. Ultimately, Messalina's penchant for passion proved her downfall. She fell in love with Gaius Silius, the handsome man in Rome. After making him divorce his wife, she lived openly with him, redecorating his home with furniture from the imperial palace. Finally, she decided to celebrate a bigamous marriage with him, after which they would get rid of Claudius. The Roman historian Tacitus says, "She craved the name of wife because it was outrageous and thus the greatest satisfaction to a sensation seeker." The extent to which the ancient histories accurately reflect Messalina's extramarital affairs is uncertain. At least two of the primary sources, Tacitus and Suetonius, wrote several generations after Messalina's time and relied on the memoirs of Agrippina, who had a good reason to slander her predecessor. Hyperbole or not, tales of Messalina's escapades have propagated for 2 millennia in the arts, from prose, paintings, and sculptures to plays, films, and television series. To any extent, Messalina craved to be the world's sexiest woman. Her endurance in that regard exceeded even her wildest expectations. Messalina took a lover or two, as was quite common in ancient Rome, but the accusations that a noblewoman would work as a common whore in a brothel alongside a prostitute is pretty far-fetched. It sounds like the average Roman political smear campaign. Also, the historians who deliver these accounts, Tacitus and Suetonius, are known to be not much more than scandalmongers. They lived some 70 years later, not to mention they and the public were against this entire imperial line. A lot of these accounts can also be traced back to Agrippina the Younger, the next wife of Emperor Claudius, which appears that Agrippina was trying her hardest to displace the children of Messalina in the line of succession.